I'm 32, male, and live in a modest but comfortable house I inherited from my late grandfather. It's not a mansion or anything, but it's home, and I've spent years renovating it myself, pouring my weekends into repairs, painting, and landscaping. My life is pretty simple, but I'm proud of what I've built. That is, until my stepmother and stepsister turned my peaceful existence into chaos. For some context, my father remarried about 6 years ago. His new wife, my stepmother, is the type of person who seems friendly on the surface but has a way of making everything about her. Her daughter, my stepsister, is cut from the same cloth. She's 27, never worked a day in her life, and expects the world to cater to her. For the most part, I've kept my distance. Family gatherings were awkward, but I managed to keep things civil by staying polite and detached. Everything started one Sunday afternoon when my stepmother showed up at my door unannounced. She had that overly cheerful tone that immediately put me on edge. "Oh, you've really done such a good job with the place," she said, glancing around like she was appraising it for resale. Then she dropped the bomb. "So, your stepsister's pregnant," she announced, smiling as if this was supposed to be great news for me. "Okay," I replied cautiously. I wasn't particularly close to my stepsister, and her life choices didn't really concern me. Well, with the baby coming, she and her boyfriend are going to need a proper home. That tiny apartment they're in just won't do. You've got this big house all to yourself. It's such a shame it's going to waste. I stared at her, not quite believing where this was headed. She continued, "We were thinking it'd be best if you sold the house and gave the money to your stepsister. It's for family, after all, and you can always rent an apartment somewhere. It's not like you need all this space." I was speechless for a moment, then laughed, thinking it had to be a joke. "You're kidding, right?" Her smile faltered. "I'm serious. You're a single man with no kids. It's selfish to keep this house when your family needs it." My disbelief turned into anger. This house was left to me by my grandfather. It's not up for discussion. If they need a better place, maybe your boyfriend should get a job. That's when she dropped the fake friendly act. Her face hardened, and she crossed her arms. "You're being incredibly selfish. Family helps family. Do you think your grandfather would want you hoarding this house while your stepsister struggles?" I shut the door in her face. I thought that was the end of it, but I underestimated just how entitled they could be. A week later, my stepsister called me. She didn't bother with small talk. "You know, it's really pathetic that you're refusing to help. I'm having a baby, and you're sitting in that big house like some greedy loser. You don't even deserve it." "Excuse me?" I snapped. "You have no right to tell me what I deserve. Your problems are not my responsibility." She went on a tirade, calling me selfish, heartless, and every other insult she could think of. I hung up, but they didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, I got texts and calls from both of them, each one more aggressive than the last. They tried guilt, manipulation, and even outright threats. The final straw came when I came home from work one day and found my stepmother and stepsister standing in my driveway with a realtor. "What the hell is this?" I demanded. "We're just looking at your options," my stepmother said smugly. "We found a buyer who's willing to pay cash. It's a great deal. You'll be able to help your family and still have money left over for yourself." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They had no right to sell my house, but they were acting like it was a done deal. I told the realtor to leave immediately and warned them both to get off my property. When they refused, I called the police. They played the victim, of course, claiming I was overreacting and that they were just trying to have a conversation. The police sided with me and escorted them off my property, but I knew this wasn't over. 2 days later, I received a letter from a lawyer. They were threatening to contest my ownership of the house, claiming that since my father had remarried, the house was now a family asset. It was laughable, but I still had to deal with the stress of hiring my own lawyer to shut it down. Thankfully, the will was airtight, and they didn't have a leg to stand on. But that didn't stop them. My stepmother started spreading lies to the rest of the family, painting me as some kind of villain who was turning my back on a struggling pregnant woman. I started getting calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all parroting the same nonsense about helping family and doing the right thing. I decided I'd had enough. If they wanted a fight, I was going to give them one. First, I installed security cameras around my property. Then, I went to the police and filed a restraining order against both my stepmother and stepsister. They'd already trespassed once, and I wasn't about to let it happen again. Next, I dug into their lives. My stepsister had been posting on social media about her amazing baby shower plans, complete with expensive decorations, catering, and a designer baby crib. She and her boyfriend clearly weren't as broke as they claimed. I screenshot everything and sent it to the relatives who'd been harassing me, pointing out the hypocrisy. But the real revenge came when I found out that my stepmother had been lying to my father about the whole situation. She told him I'd offered to sell the house, but then changed my mind, making it sound like I was toying with them out of spite. My father, who had been staying out of the drama, was furious when he learned the truth. He confronted her in front of the entire family at a gathering, exposing all the lies and manipulation. It was a spectacular blow-up, and by the end of it, my stepmother and stepsister were left scrambling to defend themselves. To top it all off, I filed a defamation lawsuit against my stepmother for the lies she'd been spreading about me. It was a long process, but in the end, she was forced to issue a public apology and pay a settlement, which I donated to a local women's shelter, just to make a point. Now, they're completely cut off. My father is in the process of divorcing my stepmother, and my stepsister has been shunned by most of the family. As for me, I've never felt more at peace. If you enjoyed this wild ride of entitlement and revenge, make sure to stick around. I've got plenty more stories where this came from.